Okay, so the grammar rule we're going to talk about is Zeitform, and that's like tense, so verb tense. And this is one of my favorite things to talk about in German, but it's also, I think, one of the hardest because there's so many tenses. And personally, for me, I sometimes get confused about which tense I'm using and how to do it correctly and how to apply it correctly to a sentence. And so I just kind of made a comprehensive screencast just basically that goes through all the different tenses and shows the differences between them. So a lot of these, I don't go in depth on these specific tenses, but I basically give an overview just so if you're having trouble with a specific tense or you're getting it confused with another one, you can come to this video and kind of review and get a summary of what each tense is. So the first tense I'm going to talk about is present tense, das Präsens, and that's basically your normal tense, how you usually conjugate a verb in present tense. So most of the time you have normal conjugations of verbs. So for example, I just picked the verb singen, and you have ich singe, du singst, sie es singt, wir singen, ihr singt, sie singen. And that's all of these subjects are singing in the plural tense. In the present tense. And then, of course, there are also some verbs that change stem. It's really important to remember that, such as essen. So, ich esse, du isst. There's the change in stem. Sie es isst. And then, wir essen, ihr esst, sie essen. Most of the time, these changes in stem just occur during du and sie and s. So that is the present tense in a nutshell. Pretty simple. That's like one of the first tenses, of course, that you learn because it's most of the time you talk in present. So then you have the simple past, Präteritum. And this is also called the narrative past. And so most of the time it's used in like children's books and things like that. So you have two different types of conjugations of verbs. One of them is are weak verbs. So I chose the verb sagen, and then this is where you have the te ending. So ich sagte, du sagtest, sie es sagte, wir sagten, ihr sagtet, sie sagten. So you just add that t into there, and that's how you get the simple past for weak verbs. Then you also have strong verbs, and you just have to memorize them if you're going to use them. Because they changed all different types of things. For example, gehen changes like ich ging, sehe changes to ich sah, and lesen changes to ich las. So that's just kind of the similarities and differences between weak and strong verbs, and that's the simple past. Then you have present perfect, or das Perfekt, which is the conversational past. So it's the form that has haben or sein plus the GE form. So ich habe das gesagt, ich habe meinen Hut gefunden, wir sind nach Madrid geflogen. And here you can see that you have the haben or sein form, so ich habe conjugated correctly to the subject, and then the GE form of the verb, so sagen is gesagt in the GE form. Then you have ich habe again, and then meinen Hut gefunden, so the GE form of finden. And then you can also have sometimes the sein form of the verb if you're moving from point A to point B. So since you're flying on a plane nach Madrid, you're going to use the sein form, conjugated for wir, which is sind. So that's the present perfect, or the das Perfekt. And the next type of past tense is the past perfect, which is das Plusquamperfekt. And this one I think is like one of the most complicated of the past tenses. And so it's constructed just like the present perfect tense, which we just talked about, or the conversational past, except that the haben or sein is replaced by hatten or waren. And so in this example, sie hatte gut gespielt, bis sie verletzt wurde. She had played well until she was injured. And what you want to pay attention to is the first clause here. And so if you wanted to say she played well just in the past, you would say sie hat gut gespielt. But because you're saying she had played well, you have to replace the hat with hatte, but you still have that GE form. Okay, so now we have an example. And it's der Wolf blank, die Großmutter schon blank, aus Rotkäppchen ins Haus kam. So the word that we're given is fressen, and the subject is der Wolf, and you know that it's masculine and that it would be the same, like, it's a more specific subject for, like, S. You could just say S blank die Großmutter schon, and it's just the vaguer form. And so you know that you need to conjugate a form of hatten, and you know that it's hatten because fressen isn't moving from point A to point B. And so you conjugate it for er S, and that's hatte. Sorry for my handwriting. And then now you need the GE form of the verb at the end, which is gefressen. So the wolf had eaten the grandmother when Little Red Riding Hood came into the house. Okay, so now we're going to move into the future tense. So normal future tense, das Futur, you have a sentence, and you have the conjugated form of werden plus the infinitive at the end of the sentence. So the conjugation of werden is right here. Ich werde, du wirst, er wird, or sie es wird, wir werden, ihr werdet, sie werden. And it's important to have that memorized because you use the word werden a lot. So an example is in 10 Jahren werde ich zu alt sein. So in 10 years I will be too old. And you see here in 10 Jahren, ich is the subject, and you have werde conjugated for it, and then at the end you have the infinitive. So in this case it's sein. So I have a few examples. So the verb in this sentence is machen. And so ich blank meine Hausaufgaben später machen. And I want to conjugate it so that it says, I will do my homework later. So we're going to first conjugate the infinitive of werden for ich. So in this case it's werde. And then at the end you have the infinitive of the verb, which is just machen. The next sentence, blank einen Job blank, so he will find a job. So now we're going to conjugate werden, so in this case it's wird. So wird einen Job, and then the infinitive of the verb, so finden. And then the last sentence, blank die Klassenfahrt blank, and the verb is genießen, so ihr werdet, you're going to conjugate the form of werden. And then you have the infinitive, which is genießen. So y'all will enjoy the class trip. So the last tense that we're going to talk about is the future perfect tense, or Futurtzwei, and then this is the hardest tense of, like, the future tenses. So, but basically a way to explain it is that Futurtzwei is the perfect tense, which is like the haben or sein form and then the GE form, so the conversational past tense, plus Futur eins, which we just talked about, which is werden plus the infinitive. So a normal sentence in the present tense is ich mache meine Hausaufgaben. So the next sentence, if you write it in das Perfekt, this should be a K here. Ich habe meine Hausaufgaben gemacht. So that is in the conversational past tense. Now, in order to turn it into the future zwei form, which is down here, you need to add the Futur eins tense to it. So basically what that is you add werde here, or the conjugation of the infinitive of werden, into the place where the habe used to have been. And you kick the habe to the end of the sentence and put it in its infinitive form. So add in werden and conjugate that. So ich werde meine Hausaufgaben, and then gemacht, and then you put the habe at the end in the infinitive form, haben. So ich werde meine Hausaufgaben gemacht haben. And it's a lot of verbs. And so an example is, bevor wir nach Hause kommen, werden sie alles aufgegessen haben. And the translation is, before we get home, they will have eaten everything up. So the Futur 2 is the English equivalent of they will have, or we will have, or she will have done this. And so this ending, so if you look at it, so sie werden alles aufgegessen haben. So here you have sie, and that's in the plural form of sie, they. And the verb werden is conjugated for the verb sie. So sie werden alles aufgegessen. You have the action, the specific action verb in its ge form, and then haben in the infinitive. So bevor wir nach Hause kommen, werden sie alles aufgegessen haben. And then again, here's another website for more on Futur 2. So basically just an overview of everything, of the tenses. You have present tense, then you have the simple past, which is your narratives, such as like children's books. Then you have the das Perfekt, or present perfect, which is the conversational past tense. And then you have das Plusquamperfekt, which is she had done this, he did that, or he had done this, so she had played well, he had grown up well, something like that. The wolf had eaten the grandmother. And then your future tense, so werden plus the infinitive, and then your Futur 2, which is they will have.